Hi, my name is Sean Phillips. This is my ePortfolio presentation for Fort Hays State University for my Building Leadership Licensure program. Some goals that I have. In the next 1 to 5 years, I'd like to be hired as an assistant principal, probably at the middle school or high school level, because that's where I've taught. Then in 6 to 10 years, probably moving into a head principal type of role, with maybe in the next 10 plus, considering maybe even moving into a superintendent role to finish out my career. On a personal level, in the next 1 to 5 years, I have 2 boys that are in high school. They will both be in college by then, so helping them transition into the college arena and become, develop the ability to have their own careers and live on their own. That's going to be something that's important to me. Then in the next 6 to 10 years, they will probably be into their own careers. So my wife and I like to travel, so I think we'll spend more time doing that. And then in the next 10 plus years, both of my boys will probably be into their careers, maybe with wives and grandkids for us, so we'll spend some time with that. And then I've been teaching for 20 years, so 10 plus years out, it's going to be getting close to retirement time. It's time to start thinking about that. My leadership philosophy. In general, I feel like my leadership philosophy is bring out the greatness in others. Teachers and students all have greatness inside of them. It's my job to help facilitate that. So be supportive and try to help teachers develop as educators, help them develop in leadership. I want students to love to come to school, so create an environment that celebrates what they do, challenges them to be leaders as well. I want to achieve those light bulb moments where students and teachers feel like they've accomplished something that they didn't think they could before. That's something that's important to me. My program of study, I've spent since August of 2017 working through all the different courses. I now have that finished through the intercession here of December to January of 2018. I've also attached my resume. My resume here highlights my educational background from Fort Hays State to my master's and bachelor's degree from the University of Kansas, as well as my different teaching experiences and leadership opportunities to hopefully make me more of an attractive candidate for those leadership positions at a school. My annotated bibliography, the things that I tried to focus on in my annotated bibliography were articles that were not included in class assignments but enhanced those that we did look at. So trying to look at ways that principals are leaders, so how you can impact teachers through maybe evaluation, through professional development, and then as well as other issues that go into education. So things like transgender and gender nonconforming students, trying to help all students feel supported. This is something that we've seen in the news quite a bit, so try to research how to make these students feel safe and provide them with opportunities that are going to help them better integrate into our school so they feel like just a regular student. I also looked at special education. Special education, a lot of times discipline is an issue that you have to deal with as an administrator, so making sure that we're thinking about those students and their specific needs so that those students aren't being disciplined disproportionately. We need to be addressing their behavior in terms of support because of being a disability of theirs. I also looked at preparedness. As a principal, it's my job to know about special education and be a leader in that. So how do I go about doing that? What are the ways that principals can become more prepared? And, just in general, trying to create an overall environment that demonstrates good leadership. Some of my activities at the district level. At the district level, I spent time with my assistant superintendent and superintendent, as well as all the building staff in for visions and goals, our district administrator meeting. In that district administrator meeting, we talked about our vision for the future. We had a new superintendent this year, Lauren Feldkamp, and he wanted to talk about our idea of where we should be heading for academics, community relations, pride, facilities, things like that. So this discussion developed some of those things. For teaching and learning activities, trying to develop the expectations. We had a district level retreat here. There's the high school staff, elementary and middles on the side over on the other side, where we talked about how we were going to work towards our strategic plan, trying to focus on increasing achievement. What are the expectations there? What are the expectations for recruiting and retaining highly qualified staff, providing safe learning environments, and integrating technology? The next activity that I did was planning for the future. We've built new buildings, and next thing we're looking for is to go and build a new high school. But that's going to be tied into our middle and elementary as well, because we do have some bond indebtedness there, trying to discuss how that indebtedness plays a role in what we're going to do here in the future with the high school. Also looking at how do we gain community support, not just of the parents of high school students, but also parents throughout, and maybe even parents that don't even, community members that don't even have students in school. How do we garner their support so that we can maybe address this moving forward? Collaborating with key stakeholders. With a lot of the new safety drills that were put in place this year, it's important to collaborate with police and fire. So here we're having a meeting with the the police department, and how those drills are going to look, how we're going to progress, how that deals from one building to the next, and how we're going to intertwine all those so that our district is safe. I also worked with USD 464 Education Foundation and our assistant superintendent. This group tries to celebrate the district and solve problems for the district. So we discuss things like an upcoming breakfast that's going to celebrate the success of elementary students. How do we better streamline that process? What's it going to look like? And then from a high school standpoint, there are several students that haven't been claiming scholarship monies. How do we go about streamlining that process so that they can get those things and get the opportunities that are going to help them in college? Then the last thing I did, I went with our finance staff and we talked about problems or issues that are going to be related to funding. So I went to the KSDE budget workshop and we talked about how this funding is going to have to change and have new requirements, things like dyslexia funding, how special education funding will change, and the base state aid, using new software, things like that, all that, and how it's going to impact your school. From an elementary standpoint, several of the activities that I did were, first, working with our vision for what we're going to do moving forward. I worked with the test coordinator and an assistant principal, and we laid out a plan based upon map testing and benchmark assessments. What are the different resources and programs that we would provide to help students moving forward, so that our goal then being to help all students succeed. I met with grade level teams at the elementary school as well to talk about evaluation. In that evaluation, we talked about what it would look like, how it would involve multiple different ways to observe, and also setting goals. So kind of collaborating with the staff and how we're going to use this evaluation as a way to help them improve as educators. I also met with our head principal, Chuck Mann, about budgets, and we discussed different line items, how we can use those line items and change those line items, and what should and shouldn't be purchased from those different line items, how you determine what's good for students, what's not, just to have an overall discussion about the budget moving forward. From collaborating with key stakeholders, this event I shadowed the elementary principals going to a community event where we met the superintendent and the administrative team. So for this, by being with the elementary staff, we built relationships with families that are in the community, also with like the local fire department who were serving meals at this, a good community event to try to build trust and establish some relationships with the community there. I also served as an assistant principal at the elementary school, where we worked on trying to do things that were fair for all stakeholders, whether it be students, whether it be parents, whether it be teachers. So dealing with discipline that is fair, also with how we're going to distribute MTSS practices that are going to be fair for all students and staff. And then lastly, special education has a lot of law involved in it, so trying to provide FAPE for students. We tried to interview paras for the upcoming school year and try to decide which paras would fit best for which students to give them the best opportunity, and to ensure that we are fulfilling the role of providing special education services for students. From the secondary activities, I dealt with, first, for vision and goals, I shadowed my high school principal through a building leadership team retreat where we discussed the visions for the upcoming school year, what types of changes we wanted to make, what we felt like we could address. So just trying to set a tone for what we wanted this year to look like. Another thing for vision and goals, one thing that I did was evaluate some new information. We were thinking about possibly doing student-led conferences at our high school, and my principal assigned me to go gather some information and share with our staff, similar to what he would. But I went over to another school, Baser Linwood High School, and I met with Jared Jackson, one of their assistant principals, to discuss what they do and see how we might apply this and then share that information at our school. I also got involved in evaluation, so trying to help teachers develop their skills. John Morgan, one of our biology teachers, allowed me to sit in on his formal observation with our assistant principal, and then after that evaluation I went in and collaborated with our assistant principal to talk about things that we thought were good, areas that we thought maybe he could continue to try to develop to improve his teaching craft. I also worked with rolling out technology. This is Forrest. He's our IT person, one of our IT people. And one of the things we were doing is rolling out Chromebook, a one-to-one initiative to our middle school. We already had it at the high school, but we were getting ready to start a new year going with rolling that out to middle school. And so we were discussing with other staff how we were going to go about rolling that out. By working together, we were talking about how we were going to roll that out to our high school for the second year, what that protocol would look like as well. Another thing that I did, supervision is a key thing, trying to make people safe. I supervised all of our JV basketball games. This is the scores table crew and the officials there. I'm the administrator in charge for that. And, just trying to keep things safe from a building standpoint, making sure that there's no dangers for people, getting the facility closed down at the end of the night safely, dealing with any issues that could potentially be dangerous or confrontational, let's say. Did that. I also sat in on some interview and was a big part of the interview group that interviewed for a new art teacher, and by building a collaboration between other teachers, trying to figure out who would be the best hire. We offered Autumn Bullock right here at the job, and she is now our new art teacher. Another thing that we worked on is trying to develop a new bell schedule, trying to maximize our teaching and learning. We were not happy with our previous one, so working with our head principal, formulating a committee to try to evaluate. And here's a look at some of the different models that we were looking at. We made a decision specifically trying to deal with how we wanted to give something called halftime and make it more beneficial for students. And then we would share that information out, similar to if a principal would get together and share information. Collaborating with stakeholders, one thing that I did was create a promotional video. And this promotional video was about Tonganoxie High School, trying to sell Tonganoxie as a great place, which it really is, and try to build support and try to recruit teachers or students that are looking for a place, parents that are looking for a place to send their kids, to try to create a positive feel for our school. Another thing, collaborating with stakeholders, was coming up with resources. Our after-prom event, I was put in charge of trying to build these relationships and collaborate with stakeholders to secure funding for our after-prom. So I went out into the community and talked with business leaders, and this is my spreadsheet for the different donations that I secured by talking to these business owners so that we could provide a safe place for our students after prom. We had an issue with our scheduling. And I got involved big time with trying to reestablish and assign schedules, working on our master schedule to make it fair for teachers. So we had some teachers that were extremely overloaded in class size. So by closing down different sections and opening new sections and buying out plan times and things like that, trying to find something that's best for teachers and students. I also worked with our assistant AD to evaluate a garment contract with Under Armour to see if that would be more fair, because between our programs, it wasn't really fair because some groups had more money than others based upon either time of year or what they did. So this is going to be an attempt to try to make that more fair. This is me evaluating a contract and posing questions. And then I also supervise some football activities as well, trying to demonstrate professionalism. Sometimes people can get fired up, and trying to deal with those people is something that you have to work on as well. I also train new staff, trying to promote protocols and things like that we will deal with going through the year. Principal might do this at the beginning of the year, but I did this with our staff for this year. In terms of the reflection, the thing that I really, really like is the idea of sharing leadership okay, and building relationships. Those are the things that I really wanted to focus on, and I feel like if I can do that, that's going to benefit me as an administrator. It's not about me, it's going to be about we. And so as I do that, I think that's going to end up helping me out. So shared leadership, relationship building, all of that stuff is going to help me be a better leader here. You can see here's the different courses that I took and some of the standards that they reflect. So that's kind of a summary of how it went for me. I'm excited to have this done, and I look forward to being a building administrator.